Okay. All of the children had a go at the re-entry procedure. It made my fingers itch just watching them, because the fact is, the penultima, the world's most accurate rocket simulator, is just a big version of Orbiter 4, a game at which I'm a consistent high scorer. Even the control panel layout is the same. Re-entry is a task you have to master to get past level 7 on Orbiter 4. I was twitching to play, but the other dads didn't seem to be paying any attention at all. Monsieur Martinet said that watching the others reminded him of driving lessons, and the next thing they were all going on about cars. Monsieur Martinet said he drove a Mercedes, and Mr. Xanadu said he had some Mercedes too for midweek, you know. Samson 1 said he preferred Land Rovers because of living in the desert, and they all started on about four-wheel drive. They talked about cars as though they were playing top trumps. Sometimes they made me feel like I was the only grown-up in there. What about you, Mr. Digby? What do you drive? A car. But what kind? A blue one. I was trying to concentrate on the penultima. I don't know much about cars. But you drive for a living. Surely you have to know about cars. I'd forgotten about being a taxi driver. I said, it's more about knowing your way round town, really. The car's just, well, the tools of the trade. I remembered what Dad had said about taxi driving. Taxi driving is about people, not about cars. You have to be a bit of a psychologist, a bit of a tourist guide, a little bit of everything. I don't really have time to be interested in cars. I even delivered a baby once. I think probably the baby thing was going a bit far, though Dad did sort of deliver a baby once. Everyone stared at me, like they were going to ask me to prove it by delivering another baby right now. Luckily, Mr. Bean told Monsieur Martinet it was his turn at the controls. Monsieur Martinet slipped inside the golden envelope just as neatly as Shenji Han did. He crossed his arms and said, oh, child's play. Then the screen went black and the simulator said, permanent fatal errors. Uh-oh, you are dead. I don't think so, he snapped. Not quite yet, said Dr. Drax with a smile, but in a very few seconds. You forgot to open your parachutes. Next up was Samson 1, who bounced off the atmosphere and into outer space. It didn't bother him. He seemed to quite like the idea of accelerating until you turned into a beam of light. Mr. Xanadu seemed more interested in trying to buy the penultima than he was in steering it. Oh, such a great machine. If you sell it to me, I will add fighting monsters and lightly clad female aliens to the simulation. It would be popular and profitable. The simulator is part of our training programme, said Dr. Drax. Fighting monsters is not one of our training objectives. But with a little work, said Eddie Xanadu, this could make your fortune. I already have a fortune, but thank you for your suggestion. As she said this, he hit Earth's atmosphere hard in a kind of interplanetary belly flop and burst into flames. Marvellous graphics, he said. Please take a picture of me at the controls like a true taikonaut. He gave me his phone and got the children to pose and smile with him. Then it was my turn. I don't want to brag about this, but I have completed Orbiter 4 level 50. When you have to do re-entry while being chased by a giant squid. So it really wasn't hard. Even so, Dr. Drax was impressed. Would you mind doing it again, just to make sure that wasn't beginner's luck? This time they tried to trap me. An unexpected meteor shower went by during the final approach. Luckily, this is a standard Orbiter 4 trap. You just have to remember that meteors have a gravitational pull of their own and correct your coordinates accordingly. If you don't, you get pulled off course. I was into the golden envelope for a second time. Afterwards, during the voting, Samson 2 asked me why I was so good at the penultima. I said, don't tell anyone, but I've got a PlayStation game just like this. You play PlayStation? Said Samson 2. A bit. I prefer massively multiplayer online games like World of Warcraft. Those are unusual activities for a dad, said Samson 2. But it turns out they're good activities for a taikonaut. Samson 2 smiled and nodded his head and then went off and started whispering to the others. Then all the children went off to vote. I knew I was going to win. I was the only one who would be able to save them in an emergency. I did the maths in my head. Eddie and me were both on 6. That meant if I got 3, I'd definitely won. But I could still win even if I only got 2, as long as the other 2 votes didn't both go to Eddie. When Dr. Drax came back in with the results, my heart was popping with excitement. The children have decided, she said, who is the best daddy in the world and who is going to be the best daddy in space. He got 4 votes today. 4 votes, it had to be me. I was going to space. He is Mr. Eddie Xanadu. Eddie got 10 points altogether. I came second with 6. I did ask the children about it. I just like having my photo taken, shrugged Florida. But I can work the machine. Yes, said Samson too, you were the best at handling the rocket, but that means you're also the best at PlayStation. We don't want a grown-up who's good at PlayStation. When people are good at PlayStation, they don't get killed for hours and hours, and then you have to sit and watch them, waiting for your go. We don't want some console hog. We want someone with no PlayStation skills. That's the scary thing about children. They will vote to go into space with someone who's dangerously useless if it means they get a longer go on the PlayStation.